Pam.
And I'm Erica.
And we're here today in honor of the swim trials that are held every year in Omaha, Nebraska, with this great quilt called Feeding Frenzy.
And it's made with some great fabric by Moda and Robert Kaufman.
Now you'll notice, quilters, these fish are actually going to be Drunkard's Path. We're going to show you how to put it together, but just a little caution here. In our quilt here, we have used buttons for their eyes. Now both Eric and I have young grandchildren, and so if I was making this quilt for Oakley, I would make sure that I want to embroider that eye on rather than have a button.
Or even leave it off, so.
There you go. All right, what cubes are we using today?
We are going to be using the 12-inch cube, but then also the 12-inch companion and the 6-inch companion because we have big fish and little fish.
Very good. Now, which machine are we going to use today?
We're going to be using the Go Big Electric. Now, you'd have to use either the Go Big or the Go Cutter to make this quilt because the die for the Drunkard's Path that goes with the 12-inch companion is going to be too big to fit in your Go Baby.
There you go.
So this is the die we're going to be using. We're going to get our Go Big going here and open it up and turn it on. We are going to be doing all of our cutting at once right now. We're going to need, as you can see on our fish, we're going to need some of our quarter circles and some of our arcs or smiley faces. So we're going to go ahead and get those laid on here. So I am going to kind of stagger my pieces because I'm cutting different things. I need the one arc over here of the blue, so I want to be sure I've got that covered. And then I'm going to cut a couple of the quarter circles. So you can see I've kind of staggered how I'm covering this up.
So that two-tone foam makes it easy so you know where to place the fabric. And always, quilters, you want to make sure you put that lengthwise grain back and forth through the die machine.
That's right. And we know that we know it's lengthwise grain because we've got a salvage, but also because we can test by checking for our tightness of our fabric. Now, the fish and the other pieces can be done scrappy. You can also use a layer cake or a variety of layer cakes. I kind of like purple, so I'm going to grab a purple one and put that on here. And you can see that's just the perfect fit for working with this die, so it's a great use for that.
And we know that some of you have layer cakes in your stash, so this is a great way to use those.
Even some of us up here may have those as well.
I think we might.
So I've used the 10 by 10 mat. Remember, you can use both sides of the mat, move it around a little bit to spread out those cut marks, but it's going to be good for several hundred cuts for you. I could have let that sit, but I'm impatient.
Yes.
So we're going to drag this mat off. It's going to cut down on having half those pieces stick up on the mat for me, make it a little easier. Pull off my extra here.
Look at that.
And we're going to be ready to get going with this.
Wow.
So I'm excited to see Miss Pam sew. So we've got our quarter circles. We've got our arcs. We're going to be putting them together.
All right, so here's the two pieces that we have for our Drunkard's Path. So this is the smiley part. You can see right in the center, there's that notch. And we want to make sure that the smiley part is always on top. That way when we sew it together, it's easier to sew. And then here's the inside of our circle. Again, it has one of those tiny little notches.
Huge time saver having that notch cut for you by the die.
It is. So I'm going to line up my notches together. So if you've never sewn notches, this is how you, or if you've never sewn circles, and this is how you want to do it.
Yeah, curves are really not that scary. The pinning is great. I do the same. I pin the same way Pam does. I do a pin at the beginning, one in the middle, and one at the end. Now, a lot of quilters will go ahead and use a stiletto or some sort of a long pointed object to help them guide that through at the beginning and at the end especially.
Right.
But really, the bias that you get from the curve is going to help that just sew right around the corner for you.
Right, and it's because we've cut with that lengthwise grain, so now we have the bias on the curve.
All right, let's go ahead and Pam's gonna be brave and sew it for us.
I am. I love to sew Drunkard's Path. One of my favorite things to do is have quilters who are new to our product get our Drunkard's Path dies and say, okay, let's teach you how to sew a curve. All right, now
she's gonna attempt to sew with her shoes on, just so you know, she's normally a barefoot sewer.
Yeah, all right. So I'm just going to make sure that I'm patient. That's the big thing about it. As I manipulate that fabric around, I'm just going to go kind of slower till I get to the center. I want to make sure that all my pieces are lining up so that I don't have, you know, more stitching on the top than I do on the bottom.
Really good point. Just to be patient, take your time. A marathon, not a sprint, right?
There we go. But what a great way to use your scrap set to make this fun little scrappy quilt. Okay.
I just love these fish.
All right. So now I'm going to take my pins out.
Perfect. Let's see how we ended up.
We ended up perfectly.
Perfect. Yep.
So what you want to do, our instructions tell you want to iron this out.
And look how easily it's just gonna press right out for you. You don't have to worry about doing clipping like you would in the garment world. You can just press it right out.
Right.
So this would go and be part of the fish tail.
Right.
We'd be ready to go ahead, put the rest of the fish together, and we'd have this quilt put together in no time.
Now, we'd love to see your versions of this particular quilt, so be sure and find us at AccuQuilt.com on our ideas page. We also like to see you on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest.
Of course. Because at AccuQuilt, we help you cut time
so you can quilt more.